Hello, dear students. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to a new lecture. In this lecture, we're going to have a grammar workshop, which means we are starting with a new grammar lesson, which is the passive voice. So we're going to learn how to change from the active voice to the passive voice. So let's start. Here's the table of contents. We're going to get introduced to the active and the passive voice. We're going to learn how to change the form, okay, and the form in the active and the form in the passive, and according to the tenses also, then how to change the sentence form from affirmative to negative and interrogative, and then we will have practice exercises on everything that we will learn today. So let's start with active and passive voice, starting here with the active voice. A sentence is in the active voice when the focus is on the subject. So when in the sentence, I see the subject written at the beginning of the sentence, as in here, tsunamis cause great damage. Tsunamis, the subject here. What does tsunamis do? They cause, so this is the verb, then what do they cause? Great damage. This is the direct object. So the subject, which is tsunami, is presented at the very beginning of the sentence. So in this sentence, they're focusing on the subject, which is the subject that did this action. So this sentence is written in the active voice. So again, a sentence is in the active voice when the focus is on the subject and the subject is at the beginning of the sentence. Now the passive voice, however, a sentence is in the passive voice when the stress or focus is not on the subject, but on the action that's being done, okay? So the subject wouldn't be written at the beginning of the sentence anymore. It would be either at the end or sometimes it's not necessary. So it would be unknown, not known at all. So when the subject is not present or it's present, but it's written at the end of the sentence as here, the city was damaged by the tsunami. So instead of saying tsunami damaged the city, I said the city. So I switched the position of the direct object and the subject, okay? In the active voice, the subject was at the beginning of the sentence, then I had the verb, then the direct object. Here it's the other way around. I have the direct object first, which is the city, and then it was damaged by the subject. And I can remove by tsunami, I can remove the subject, and I can just say the city was damaged. So it's optional to put the subject. And if we do add the subject, we add it at the very end. So that's in the passive voice. Let's read the sentence again. The city was damaged by the tsunami, okay? So here I'm focusing not on that tsunami made this damage, but on the action that took place. So the city was damaged. My focus is the damage. And I want you now to focus here, okay? The sentence before, as I said, it was as follows. Tsunami damaged the city. Now, when I changed it to the passive voice, I added verb to be, then past participle of the verb. I will show you next in a table, in a detailed table, how to change the verb from the active to the passive. We usually have always verb to be plus the past participle of the verb. Now, what's the tense of verb to be? The tense of verb to be should be the tense of the original verb. So again, when I said, let me write it down, in the active voice, tsunami damaged the city. Okay, this was the sentence in the active voice. We had the subject tsunami, then the verb, then the direct object. Now we said the city was damaged by the tsunami. As I was telling you, verb to be should be written in the tense of the verb. So the verb here, the main verb in the active voice is damaged, and it's in the past simple. So verb to be should be in the past simple, which is was or were. The city is a which is the direct object, it's a singular noun. So I say was, and then the past participle of verb damage, which is damaged. Okay, so this is a brief introduction on how to change the verb. I will, as I said, explain it in details next. So again, we switched the position of the direct object and the subject, and I could take it out, the subject, and keep it unknown. Okay, and I changed as follows the verb. Again, another example, the house was robbed. Okay, it was robbed by the thieves, and I here removed the subject, by the thieves. So here the subject is unknown and it doesn't affect the meaning, you know? So in the passive voice, it's not necessary, it doesn't affect the meaning if I say the house was robbed or the house was robbed by the thieves. Okay, my focus is not on who robbed that house, but on the fact that that house got robbed, you know, so my focus is on the action here and here. So the city was damaged or the house was robbed, you know, that's why. So that was an introduction to the active voice and passive voice. Now, how do I form it? As we said, we should have verb to be plus the past participle of the verb. Verb to be in the passive voice, I go back to the active voice and I look at the verb. What is the tense of the main verb? If it's past simple, verb to be should be written in the past simple. If it's past perfect, it should be written in the past perfect. If it's perfect progressive, whatever, you know? So the form for the passive voice is verb to be in the tense of the main verb and the past participle of the main verb. For example, shelters, this is the sentence here is written in the passive voice. Shelters are prepared by the government, you know? So instead of saying in the active voice, which is here, the government prepares shelters, so subject is the government, prepares is the verb, and shelters is the direct object. I wrote it the other way around. Shelters, which is the direct object, are prepared, are verb to be plus past participle of verb prepare, which is prepared by the government, by the subject. This subject did this action. And I could remove by the government and I only write shelters are prepared, point. Okay, so the subject here is optional, as we said in the passive voice. Now let's look at the highlighted in red, which is the verb to be plus the past participle of the verb, how we changed it. So we said we go back to the active voice. What's the verb here? It's prepares. It's written in the present simple. So verb to be should be written in the present simple tense. What's verb to be in the present simple? Is or are. Shelters is plural, so shelters are. And then prepare, past participle, it's a regular verb, I just add ed, so prepared. Okay? So that's all about how to form sentences in the passive voice. Now, how do I change from the active to the passive voice in more details, written again? First of all, we have to identify the subject, the verb, and the direct object. So here in this slide, I'm not explaining anything new. I'm just like showing you the steps in details again. So first step is identify what's the subject, what's the verb, and what's the direct object. As you saw in my example, here is another example. Underline each one of them and make them clear in front of you. Non-governmental organizations, this is the subject. What do these organizations do? They help, so this is the verb. They help who? Okay, so what's the direct object? The refugees. Subject, verb, direct object. This is the form for any active, for any sentence in the active voice. Now, I want to exchange the places of the subject and the direct object. So I start with refugees and I put the non-governmental organizations at the end. So it becomes refugees, but they get the help of they get helped by the non-governmental organizations. So after switching them, I want to work on the verb. What do? I add verb to be before the main verb. How do I add the verb to be? In the tense of the main verb. So help, organizations help. Okay, they help. This verb is written in the present simple tense. So what's verb to be again in the present simple? It's is or are. So refugees, now I do not look at the subject because we switched them. Okay, so we started with refugees, as you can see here. Refugees, okay, plural. So verb to be should be are, okay, not is, present simple. Are, then past participle of verb help. So are helped by non-governmental organizations. Okay, so again, when I wanted to write the verb to be, I looked at the tense here, present simple, so is or are. Now, is or are not based on the subject, based on the object, because the verb to be is coming after the direct object, because we switched their locations in the second step. Okay, so identify them, switch subject and direct object, and then do the suitable changes by writing the verb to be and past participle of the verb, and then you would have it all. Now, affirmative, negative, and interrogative forms of the passive voice. Here we have a sentence in the passive voice. The Australian forests were devastated by the wildfires. Instead of saying the wildfires devastated the Australian forests, we said the Australian forests were devastated by the subject versus the wildfires. So this sentence is already written in the passive, not the active. Okay, focus, it's written in the passive and not the active. So the Australian forests here are the direct object. They were devastated, okay? This is the verb, we have verb to be. By what subject, what devastated them? The wildfires devastated them or caused this devastation. Now negative, I just add not. So were devastated, weren't devastated. Okay, interrogative, I start with verb to be. Were the Australian forests devastated by the wildfires? So what I did from negative to interrogative is, or from affirmative to interrogative, I just switch where and the direct object. I switch their locations. So instead of saying the Australian forests were devastated by the wildfires, I say were the Australian forests devastated by the wildfires, and a question mark. Okay, here this slide is not new to you, but just we have the sentence written in the passive voice. Here's the chart which you have to memorize. Okay, and with practice you will get used to it. The rules aren't, they seem very much, but they aren't. Okay, so here is it. In the present simple, when I have a verb in the present simple, verb to be should be in the present simple. So what's verb to be is in the present simple? It's is or are. Okay, so here you have is because letter is singular. Then past participle of verb write, written. Same thing here. I am writing, present continuous. Okay, now a letter is being written. When I have present continuous, I write is verb to be plus being plus the past participle. Okay, so verb to be plus being plus the past participle of the verb. Past simple, wrote, so was, and then written. Verb to be in the past, was, plus written past participle. Now was, again, because the letter is singular, not plural. If it was plural, it would be were. Then past continuous, was writing, was being written. So I'm just adding being for the continuous, whether it's in the present or the past. Again, continuous, I add being between verb to be and past participle of the verb. When I have perfect, I have to have been, okay? So have becomes has, and then have written becomes has been written. Had stays had been written. Will write, will be. So with will, I just add be. Will be, and for sure written again, past participle. I am going to, with going to, okay, instead of am, we have is. And then going to be written. Okay, going to, I added as is. Same as I added will here, I added going to, and then be, will be, or going to be, and then past participle, which is written. Must or can, for example, I keep it as is and I add be again plus past participle, so must be written. I must write a letter must be written by me, or whether I do not add the subject, we said it's up to us. And then I should have written, a letter should have been. okay, written by whatever or whoever. Now we have practice questions. In part A, you have to tell whether the following sentences are written in the active or passive voice, and you have to explain. That dress was made for her mother. Okay. Arabic is spoken in Egypt. I'm always disturbed by them. Doug is chasing the boys. Who was the car bought by? Yes, the criminal had already been caught by the police. Mr. Swift may invite us to his wedding, and Mary sings very beautiful songs. So you have to tell whether each sentence is written in the passive or active, and you have to find out why. So explain it. Okay, so try to solve them on your own, and then you have the answer key after each slide. Okay, let's look at this example. Alcohol is not drunk here. This is passive voice. Why? Because drunk, okay, is in the past participle. This is first. Okay, here it's negative. We have verb to be is and past participle of the verb. Negative, so we have not. And what do we drink? We drink the alcohol. So alcohol is the direct object and the subject is not present. That's how we explain that this is a sentence written in the passive voice. Let's look at this one. They must draw and color the map of Italy. We didn't say the map of Italy must be drawn by someone. No, we have the subject at the beginning, we said. So the focus is on the subject. Must draw, and must, not must be drawn. So we do not have verb to be, must plus verb to be plus past participle of draw. So clearly it's active voice. That's for this question. For part B, you have to identify the subject, verb, and object, and then change these sentences from the active to the passive. And some of them might be not possible, might not be able to be changed, okay? Now, education improves our lives. Now, our lives are improved, verb to be, in the tense of this verb. So improves is in the present. Verb to be is in the present. So is or are. Now are because lives, our lives are improved. Verb improve, past participle. So our lives are improved by education. Okay, you have to do the same for the others. And then here you have to change the sentences from the passive voice back to the active voice. Okay, so I have to do it the other way around. For example, the diamond was stolen by the mafia. We start with the subject. The mafia, we remove the verb to be, and then if this was, okay, past simple, so the main verb was written in the past simple. So the mafia stole the diamond. And you have to do the same for the others. And last practice question, you have to tell whether the following sentences are written in the active or passive voice, then change it to the other form. Okay, you have to tell. So the earthquake destroyed the old town, subject, verb, and then direct object. The old town, what? Was destroyed by the earthquake. Okay, so from active to passive. By now, our session or our lecture comes to an end. I hope that everything was clear. Make sure to practice all the questions on your own and then check the answer key. If you have any question, do not hesitate to let me know. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.